I never thought a simple friendship could make me question everything about my life. When I think back to how it all began, it feels almost innocent. Two college roommates who just clicked. Marcus and I met our freshman year, both broke, both chasing something bigger than the small towns we came from. He had this easy confidence, the kind that drew people in without even trying. I was quieter, the kind who watched more than spoke. Somehow our differences fit perfectly. We balanced each other. He made me laugh. I made him think. Years passed. We graduated, got jobs, grew older. I got married to Lena, a nurse who worked long night shifts. Marcus moved to another city and built his career. Life became predictable for me. Steady paycheck, small house, dinners that felt like chores, nights that ended with the glow of my phone instead of conversation. I told myself that was what adulthood looked like, comfort over excitement, stability over spark. But sometimes when I was alone in bed while Lena worked, I'd scroll through old pictures, Marcus and me at the beach at tailgate parties, laughing over nothing, and I'd feel this pull I couldn't name. When Marcus moved back to town, I didn't realize how much I'd missed him until I saw him again. We met for drinks after years apart, and the moment he walked in, it was like time hadn't touched him. Same grin, same effortless charm, same way he looked at you like you were the only person in the room. We talked for hours, about work, about life, about how weird it was getting older. I told him I was married now. He smiled and said, "So you finally settled down, huh?" I laughed, but something in his tone made my stomach tighten. Soon our hangouts became a routine. He'd come by after work, we'd watch a game or a movie, talk about the old days. Lena was usually on shift, so it felt harmless, just two friends catching up. But it started to feel different. One night he leaned over the couch to grab the remote and his arm brushed mine. It was nothing, just skin against skin. But I felt a spark that didn't make sense. I tried to shake it off. I told myself I was tired, that I'd had too much beer. The truth was, I missed being seen. Marcus noticed things Lena didn't anymore. If I changed my haircut, he mentioned it. If I seemed off, he'd ask what was wrong. His attention felt like sunlight after months of gray. Sometimes, after he left, I'd sit there replaying our conversations in my head, wondering why I cared so much. One evening, he came over with takeout. We sat on the couch laughing over stories from college. He teased me about how serious I'd become, how I used to be spontaneous. "You've gone corporate, man," he said. "Where's the guy who used to skip class just to drive to the beach?" I told him that guy grew up. He looked at me for a moment, then said quietly, "Maybe he just got lost." The room went still. I didn't know what to say, so I looked away. But the words stayed with me long after he left. After that night, the air between us shifted. There was something unspoken, a weight that followed every conversation. When we laughed, it felt closer. When we didn't, the silence felt louder. I caught myself noticing small things, the way his shirt stretched across his shoulders, the way his laughter filled the room. Each time I told myself to stop. This was my friend. I was married, but temptation doesn't always come crashing in. Sometimes it creeps quietly, disguised as comfort. Every time I felt lonely, every time Lena texted that she'd be working late, I found myself hoping Marcus would call. He usually did. It was like he could feel when I needed him. One Friday night, Lena was on another double shift. Marcus showed up with a bottle of whiskey, saying we deserved a throwback night. We put on music from our college playlists, loud enough to drown out the quiet. We talked about everything and nothing. When he laughed, I laughed harder than I had in months. For a few hours, I forgot about everything else. Responsibilities, guilt, the weight of pretending to be fine. When he finally left that night, I stood by the door watching the taillights fade. The house felt bigger, emptier. I went to bed but couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling back to his smile, the way his voice lingered when he said goodnight. I told myself I was imagining it, that it was just nostalgia. But deep down I knew something had changed. A line had been drawn between us, thin, invisible, and dangerously close to being crossed. The night it happened didn't feel any different at first. The weather was bad, heavy rain drumming on the windows, thunder rumbling low in the distance. Lena had texted that she'd be staying at the hospital for an overnight shift, something about short staff and emergencies. I didn't think much of it. I made myself dinner, poured a drink, and turned on a movie I wasn't really watching. Then Marcus texted, "You up?" I smiled without meaning to. 15 minutes later, he was at my door, shaking rain off his jacket, grinning like always. "Didn't want you stuck here alone in this storm," he said. We sat on the couch, lights low, the kind of easy silence that only old friends can share. He opened a beer, I poured another whiskey, and we started talking about nothing. Work, life, how fast time moves when you're not paying attention. At some point, the conversation shifted. Marcus asked how Lena and I were doing. I shrugged, said we were fine. He didn't buy it. "You don't sound fine," he said softly. I tried to laugh it off, but he just looked at me with that steady gaze that always saw too much. "I don't know," I said finally. "It's like we live together, but we're not together, you know? I can't remember the last time we really talked about anything that mattered." Marcus nodded. "That's hard, man. You deserve to feel seen." Something in the way he said it, so gentle, so certain, made me look away. My chest felt tight, like I'd said too much. The rain got louder, hitting the windows like small pebbles. The room felt smaller, warmer. Marcus leaned back, his arms stretched along the couch behind me. I could feel the heat from his skin even without him touching me. For a long time, neither of us said anything. When the movie ended, I got up to grab blankets from the closet. "You can crash here if the storm doesn't stop," I said. He smiled. "Like the old dorm days, huh?" When I turned back toward him, he was standing closer than I expected. The air felt charged, heavy with something we both understood but didn't dare name. I handed him a pillow. His fingers brushed mine. Just a second, barely contact. But my heart jumped. He noticed. I know he did because his expression changed, softened. "You okay?" he asked quietly. "I'm fine," I said, but my voice sounded strange even to me. "Ethan," he said, his tone lower now. "You don't have to keep pretending everything's fine all the time." Something in me cracked at those words. Maybe it was the way he said my name, or the kindness behind it. I'd been holding myself together for so long, being the good husband, the reliable man, the one who never slipped. But right then, I didn't want to be any of that. I just wanted to breathe. I didn't plan what happened next. It was just a moment, his hand resting gently on my shoulder, my breath catching, the space between us disappearing. It wasn't wild or dramatic. It was quiet, hesitant, filled with a kind of understanding I hadn't felt in years. For a heartbeat, I thought about Lena, her face, her tired smile, the life we'd built. And then, for another heartbeat, I thought about myself, the version I used to be before everything got so safe and dull. I didn't know which thought hurt more. When I finally pulled back, the room felt different. The rain had stopped, but the silence it left behind was louder than before. Marcus looked at me, his eyes soft, searching. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. He didn't push, didn't demand, didn't ask for anything. He just sat back down, breathing quietly, as if the moment itself was enough. We stayed like that for a long time, just two men in a quiet room, both knowing something had shifted forever. When he finally fell asleep on the couch, I stayed awake, staring at the faint glow from the TV. I could still feel the warmth of his hand, the weight of everything that hadn't been said. Part of me wanted to run, to erase the night, pretend it never happened. But another part of me, the part that had been buried under years of routine and silence, didn't want to. That part felt alive. As dawn crept through the blinds, I sat there, numb and restless. Marcus looked peaceful in sleep, like he hadn't just turned my world upside down. I envied that calm. I wanted to believe it meant nothing, that it was a mistake, a drunken blur. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. It wasn't about crossing a line. It was about realizing the line had been there all along, waiting, daring me to see what was on the other side. Morning came quietly, the kind of gray light that makes everything look softer than it really is. I woke up on the couch, still in the clothes from the night before. My head felt heavy, my chest even heavier. Marcus was already awake, sitting at the kitchen counter with a mug of coffee. He looked up when he saw me, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. There was nothing to say that wouldn't break the fragile stillness of that morning. He gave a small smile, gentle, tired. "Didn't mean to crash here," he said. His voice was calm, too calm. "It's fine," I replied, my throat dry. "Storm was bad anyway." He nodded and sipped his coffee. The silence stretched between us, full of things that had no name. I wanted to ask him what last night meant, if it meant anything at all. But the words stayed trapped somewhere between guilt and fear. When he finally stood to leave, he paused by the door. "You don't owe me anything," he said quietly. "Last night. It just happened." I nodded, but it didn't feel like enough. He looked like he wanted to say more, but instead, he just gave me that same half-smile and walked out into the cold morning air. The door clicked shut, and I was alone again. The house felt unfamiliar. The couch, the kitchen, even the smell of coffee, everything carried traces of something I couldn't erase. I stood there for a while, listening to the echo of rainwater dripping outside, trying to convince myself that it was over, that I could move on. But the truth was, something had shifted. At work that day, I couldn't focus. I kept seeing flashes of his face, hearing his voice, feeling that moment when everything between us changed. I told myself it was just confusion, loneliness, a one-time mistake. But the thought didn't make me feel better. It made me ache. That evening, Lena came home early. She was exhausted, her hair damp from the drizzle outside. She smiled when she saw me, the kind of soft, familiar smile that used to feel like home. I hugged her, maybe too tightly. She pulled back a little, surprised. "Everything okay?" she asked. I wanted to tell her everything, to confess, to unload the weight. But instead, I just nodded. "Yeah," I said. "Just missed you." That night, as she slept beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Her breathing was steady, peaceful. I should have felt comfort in that, but all I felt was distance. The guilt didn't just come from what I'd done. It came from realizing how long I'd been emotionally gone before it ever happened. Days turned into weeks. Marcus didn't call, and I didn't reach out either. We both knew space was the only thing that could keep everything from unraveling further. Still, every time my phone buzzed, part of me hoped it was him. I started noticing things differently. The way sunlight hit the window in the morning. The quiet hum of the fridge. The way Lena hummed while cooking dinner. All the small moments I'd stopped appreciating, but no matter how hard I tried to focus on them, a shadow lingered behind it all. One afternoon, I ran into Marcus at the grocery store. It was quick, an unexpected collision in the cereal aisle. He smiled when he saw me, but it wasn't the same smile. It was polite, restrained. We talked briefly, about work, about life, about nothing. Before we parted, he said, "You doing okay?" "Yeah," I lied. "You?" He nodded, then gave a faint smile. "Good. Take care of yourself, Ethan." Then he walked away, leaving me standing there between shelves of cereal and coffee, wondering how something so powerful could vanish into silence so easily. That night, I sat on the porch alone. The air was cool, the sky dimming into shades of blue and gray. I thought about the line we crossed, about how it had both freed and broken me. I didn't know if what happened was love, confusion, or just two lonely souls finding warmth in the same darkness. Maybe it didn't matter. Maybe it was all of it, I whispered to myself. It wasn't supposed to happen, but even as I said it, I knew I didn't regret understanding what it revealed, because the truth was simple and brutal. I wasn't angry at Marcus. I wasn't even angry at myself. I was angry that it took something like that to remind me that I was still human, that beneath all the layers of duty and routine, I still wanted to feel seen, understood, and wanted. In the quiet that followed, I realized I'd never be the same again. I'd still go to work, still smile at Lena, still live the life I'd built, but inside, a part of me would always remember that one night, that one moment when everything I thought I knew about myself changed. As the wind rustled through the trees and the faint patter of rain began again, I closed my eyes. Maybe life wasn't about keeping lines uncrossed. Maybe it was about learning who you are when you finally do.